Alright, midweek number 2. Let's start off with reviewing last week's midweek. So, the predicate of a sentence makes a statement about the first part of the sentence, the naming part of the sentence. Do you remember what it's called? It is the subject of the sentence. And every word in a sentence belongs to either the complete subject or the other part, the complete, like I just said up here, the complete predicate. The heart of the complete subject is the subject, which we know is that noun or pronoun, that thing that is doing the action. So the heart of the complete predicate is the simple predicate, which we know is the action word. What part of speech are action words? Hope you said verb, because that's what the answer is. And whenever we change a sentence from present to past tense, or vice versa, the only word that's going to change in terms of its spelling to show that tense change is going to be the verb. The verb. Alright, so answers are up here in case you need them. I forgot to say that in the last midweek. Oh well. Alright, so one or more helping verbs, which are sometimes called auxiliary verbs or linking verbs, are often used with the main verb to express our meaning more exactly. Why don't you circle, star, highlight this? Basically what this is saying is there's two types of verbs. You're going to have your action verbs, which we looked at last week, but you're also going to have your helping verbs, what I will usually refer to as linking verbs. It's all the same thing, but they just help out that action verb a little bit more. So if we have the rope will break, the helping verb used with the verb break to make the meaning more exact is what word? It is the word will, right? So will is your linking verb. Break is still an action verb, so both of those are going to be considered verbs. Now, you'll notice the meaning of the sentence changes depending on what helping verb you use. So if we have like the rope will break, we know 100% for certain that rope is going to be torn into two. But if we have the rope might break, that isn't necessarily as certain that it's going to happen. So the meaning of the sentence changes depending on the helping verb that you use, which is why helping verbs are important to pay attention to. So if Mary settled the argument versus Mary could have settled the argument. In sentence A, the main verb is being used by itself. What is that verb? Settle. Who is settling it? Mary. She is settling the argument. But in B, we have two helping verbs that help twist the meaning a little bit. It helps change it. So in A, she definitely 100% settled the argument, but in B, Mary could have settled the argument, but it sounds like she didn't actually do that. So the two helping verbs here would be could and have. You'll notice they're right next to the action verb. That usually is what happens, though not always. So if you're really stuck with trying to find the helping verbs, try looking for the words really close to the action verb, although again, remember, not always the case. So you need to learn to recognize the important helping verbs. So why don't you circle, star, highlight all of those? Shall, will, may, can, could, would, should, might, and must. If you see any one of those words, it is automatically going to be a helping verb, okay? So if we have Vera blank study, could we stick any of those highlighted words into the blank and have that sentence make sense? Absolutely. Vera shall study, will study, could study, would study, should study, may study, can study, must study, and might study. Yeah, Vera's going to be studying. So those ones are only ever helping verbs, okay? But there are some verbs that can serve as a main verb by itself or as a helping verb to another action verb, okay? So these are also ones you want to circle, star, highlight. The forms of the verb be. You have is, am, are, was, were, and been. You'll never hear someone say like, I be smart, right? Because that would sound really unintelligent. But you would say like, I am smart or he is smart. So these are just the forms of be. If you are in Spanish, I think it's ser maybe is the verb for be in Spanish. I took French. In French it was être. But basically, this is just the conjugation of be. These 6 words I want you to memorize, okay? Because we will still be talking about these when you are a senior with the very, very last midweek that we go through. These never, ever, ever go away, okay? So these are important to recognize as being verbs. They can be by themselves or they can help an action verb. The other two, we have has or had, and do, does or did. Again, you might see these by themselves, like I have homework or I did my homework. But you might also see them with another word, with like I have helped you with your homework, or he did help you with your homework. I can use another verb other than helped, but right now I don't feel like it. So we're moving on. So these, important, okay? Just like these. Circle, star, highlight them if you haven't already. So if we have the weather is bad versus the weather is improving. In both sentences, we have the verb is. But in one sentence, is the main verb there. The other sentence, though, it acts as a helping verb to another action verb. So which sentence has is being a linking verb, a helping verb? It would have to be because be has the action verb of improving. I have brought my camera along. I have my camera with me. Okay, so again, both sentences have the verb have in it, but which one has the verb have being a helping verb? It just links over to another action verb. If you look at the two, we have I have brought. Brought would be my action, but B, it's just I have my camera. So A has have helping brought. So if I had a midweek and I was like, I want to know what the verbs are in the sentence, you would need to circle have and brought together. Otherwise, you'd get like, half credit. So we did the dishes. Yes, we did wash the dishes. So again, both sentences have did, but which one has did being a helping verb to some other action word? It would be because of wash, right? We could say we washed the dishes, but that's different from we did wash the dishes. So the driver should have been watching the road. So we have 3 helping verbs in this sentence. And those 3, if you don't remember what they are, you can go back to the previous slide to try to look at them. But you might notice you have the should, have, and been, a form of be right here, should have been. So those are the 3 helping verbs. What action verb are they helping? Watching. So if I on a test asked you to circle all of the verbs in the sentence, you would want all 4 of those words circled. They're all verbs. Different types of verbs, helping versus action verbs, but they're still verbs. Okay? So the complete verb in any sentence includes the main verb, that action word, plus all the helping verbs, like I just said. So if the driver should have been watching the road, how many verbs consist of the complete verb in the sentence? Should have been in watching. That is 4. I could have been studying for my tests. Again, complete verb. How many verbs do we have here, both between the action and the linking verbs? Could have been studying. 4 again. Notice again, they're next to each other, but that is not always the case. 95% of the time, though, that is the case, but there are exceptions. There's always exceptions in English. All right, now adverbs. We'll get more into these later in the unit, but you might remember from last year that adverbs are another part of speech, and they modify. By the word modify, I mean they describe things. And adverbs describe verbs, adjectives, or other adverbs. Okay? So if we have this has happened frequently, the action verb is happened, the helping verb is has, but frequently is not included in the verbs because it is just an adverb. Those are 2 separate parts of speech. 95% of the time with adverbs, they'll end with ly. So if you see an ly word, chances are it's just going to be an adverb. 95% of the time. So if the engine will immediately start in the coldest weather versus this engine will start immediately in the coldest weather, what is our verb here? We have the verb start, and we have the helping verb of will start, right? Hold on, I gotta yell at my cat. Pandora, can you stop it? Get off the table, you punk. Apologies. Okay, so both sentences also have an adverb in the sentence, though, immediately, right? We know it's an adverb because it, again, ends with ly. Let me highlight it. Here we go. Okay, so which sentence does my adverb come between the main verb of start and the helping verb of will? It obviously is A, because we have will immediately start. So that's one of those things that might separate the helping verb from the action verb. You might have an adverb in between it, in which case you don't circle it. You would just circle the will, and you would just circle the start. There's another thing, though, besides adverbs that can separate the main verb from any linking verbs, any helper verbs, and that is a question, okay? When you have a sentence as a statement, like Judy can drive, the verb does not get interrupted. It's right next to each other. Helping verb of can, action verb of drive. But when you phrase it as a question, like can Judy drive, now you'll notice the subject comes in between the helping verb and the action verb, okay? So you can't always assume that they're going to be right next to each other, but a lot of times they are. So most of the questions we ask begin with helping verbs. Will this pen write? Is the water boiling? Who borrowed my book? Does Tom like pasta? Of those four, the only one that does not begin with a helping verb. We got to figure out which one that is, okay? So one way you can try to figure out which one doesn't start with a helping verb is to phrase these questions as statements. Like, this pen will write. That makes sense. The water is boiling. That makes sense. Borrowed who my book? That's weird. Tom does like pasta? That makes sense. So who is not a linking verb, okay? But the other three, those are. All right, moving right along. So, a helping verb at the beginning of the sentence, generally speaking, is going to be a signal that you have a question coming. So if we have the question, does this key fit? Okay. If we want to squish the helping verb and the action verb back together again, we would need to rephrase this as a statement. So what would that be? This key does fit. That would make sense. Now the verb, though, in the sentence consists of what two words then? You've got fit as being your action and does being your helping. So you've got does fit. Must the tire be changed? The verb in the sentence consists of three words. So again, if you're struggling to figure out what they are, try rephrasing it as a statement. What needs to be changed? The tire. So the tire must be changed, period. That squishes the helping verb and the action verbs back together again, so you'd know that the three verbs are must, be, and changed. Sometimes, just for the sake of emphasis, because we get boring with our writing, we don't want to be boring writers, sometimes we put the verb ahead of the subject. So we have the rain came down versus down came the rain. Which sentence has my verb coming in front of the subject, right? The thing that it is doing. So A, we have the rain being my subject, doing what? It came down. But in B, we have down came what? Came the rain. So B would be the one that has put the verb ahead of the subject. Why would they do that? Just to change things up a little bit, make it more interesting. It sounds more interesting, right? Down came the rain. It sounds more dramatic than the rain came down. Like I said last week, you are much more likely to select the right subject if you look for the action verb first. Once you know what the action is, then it's easier to figure out what is doing that action. So, if we have out jumped the rabbit, after you found the verb jumped, you would have to ask yourself, okay, who or what is jumping? And the answer will tell you what the subject is. So, who or what did jump? Obviously, the subject would be the rabbit. So this story the class really enjoyed. So again, this is kind of weird. It isn't like subject first, like the way English usually is. So you gotta ask yourself, what is the verb here? What's the action? Enjoyed. So who or what enjoyed? Oh, the class enjoyed. What did they enjoy? The story. So it's not that the story enjoyed the class enjoyed the story. That helps you find the subject correctly. To this old inn wandered a strange visitor. So what is my action here? Wandered. So who or what did the wandering? Well, not the inn. Those can't move. It would have to be the visitor. So visitor would be your subject. And away sped the blue car. Again, what's my verb here? What's my action? Sped. What sped away? The car. The blue car specifically. But the noun here would be car. So sped and car. Okay? Not too difficult, hopefully. But if you have any questions, as always, you can go ahead and ask me next time you see me. Or shoot me an email. Either or. Yeah, let's go to the worksheet.